WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. It is a breezy summer week here in Baltimore, and of course the Indians and the Orioles will be headed off to Tampa Bay, and nothing will be happening with the Ravens. At least we assume that. Of course, we assumed that a couple of weeks ago here after the draft, and the Ravens have had all sorts of tumult and good fortune to some degree with Jeremy Maclin signing last week as well. This guy hosts some radio here each and every Sunday. If you tune in on your Sunday drive, you're out golfing or seeing your way around town on WNST, Clark Judge is one of the contributors, along with our pals Ron Borges and Rick Goose Goslin of the Talk of Fame Network. You can follow his journey out on Twitter at Clark Judge TOF, a one-time Baltimore sports writer as well, and I always rib him about that. You can learn more at talkoffamenetwork.com as well as listening here on Sundays. Hey, man, you guys, all you national types who vote on Hall of Famers and stuff, you always say to me, the Ravens got Ozzie Newsome. They'll figure it out. They'll be okay. They'll come ready to play, and they'll be able to win 10 games next year. And, Ozzie, this last week or two, this whole Jeremy Maclin thing, and he and Eric DeCosta working the phone lines and getting involved with Decker as well, they really made a save out of the loss of Dennis Pitta and a really untimely loss of Tavon Young, their nickel corner.
Yeah, and I mean, don't forget Steve Smith's gone too. But I thought they did as well because they never panic. That's what I like about them. They've got a plan. They stick to it. I wasn't sure they were going to get to him. I mean, I thought he might sign before he even got to Baltimore, and they'd never see him. But they made him an offer he couldn't refuse. I love Jeremy Maclin. I think Kansas City's the worst without him. I understand why they let him go, but they're not going to be as good. I don't know who they have to be that consistent playmaker on the outside. I realize that there's some guys who make big plays for them, but a consistent receiver. And this guy, I mean, you're in pretty good shape to me when you got Wallace on one side and this guy on the other. If you have Wallace as your lone wolf, in Perriman, I'm not sure which guy's going to show up, when he's going to be playing, when he's healthy. But Maclin's a go-to guy who's been reliable over the years and was a terrific receiver, not only for the Chiefs, but for the Eagles as well.
Clark, you said something really interesting, and I don't think I've ever discussed this as a topic. So this is virgin territory, like the virgin snow on your Central Park picture on your Twitter at a Clark Judge TOF.
Never heard that comparison before, but yeah.
You said to me that you think the Chiefs are worse without Maclin, and isn't it really true that all of us as fans, whether we're talking about baseball, you're a big Montreal Canadiens fan, that you either add a player today and you say, we're better tonight than we were this morning, or you lose players. And I think that's the hardest part of the free agency period, being a Ravens fan, especially lately, because we hear people bitch about Ozzie, and Ozzie can't draft anymore, and look at Matt Elam, and look at Arthur Brown, and Perriman hasn't worked out yet, and we never heard from Sergio Kindle. But what you don't hear as much about is Pernell McPhee getting rich, Arthur Jones getting rich, Donnell Ellerbe getting rich. All of these guys go on. This year it's Ricky Wagner, and you wind up losing guys that you would rather keep on the football team, but someone else values them more. And, it really is day to day, right? I mean, I don't think anyone felt great about the Ravens after the draft because the offense had lost Steve Smith, because they didn't have an established running back. Their number one running back got popped. He's not even going to play in September. The offensive line's in tatters, and they got rid of Zuta. We don't really know what we have with Ronnie Stanley. He's entering his second year. So, all of these question marks. Flacco was a question mark last year. He would tell you that himself. So everything about the offense is a question mark, and then you lose Tavon Young. Then you lose Dennis Pitta. Now you're starting to feel like you're in quicksand, and all of a sudden this sort of kick, save, and a beauty, to use a little hockey vernacular there, on this Maclin thing, and also Boykin, that you do feel like going into the break, well, there's a little momentum here. Maybe the offense is going to be okay after all. I assure you, Clark, I spent 5 weeks here talking about this and seeing all that is written after the draft. No one felt good about this offense until Maclin got here last week.
Right. No, I understand that. I mean, like you said, there were more subtractions than were additions. And how much faith do you have in Joe Flacco? It's a big year for him. And Joe Flacco's proven they can get your team to the top, but he can't do it by himself. I mean, we saw what he did in 2012 when he had that great run through the playoffs, and And then what? I mean, since then I think he's been a 500 quarterback. I think exactly 500. But and that's not going to have people talking about you, especially a guy who was under fire before that year anyway. But the fact of the matter is, this is not a sport. We look at it, Nestor, as a sport. We follow it because we think it's a sport. It's a business. And those guys have to look at it as a business as well. And there are times you have to make decisions you don't want to. Now, remember, and I'm trying to think of was it 2003 maybe when they were going to crater. And I remember Billick and Ozzie and others within that organization saying, listen, we've got so many salary cap casualties coming up here. We're going to stink this year. We're not going to be any good. And I think it was 7-9, something like that. But they were much better than they thought. But they basically said, listen, we've got to get out of salary cap jail here and get back on the horse, but we can't get better until we get worse. And in most cases, that seems to be the issue. I mean, you have aberrations. I mean, New England's an aberration because Tom Brady's going to play till he's 60, I guess. But as long as Tom Brady's there, they're going to be good. And they have been. I mean, they've surrounded him with some doorknobs for receivers some years, and yet they still get the conference championship game, or they get to the Super Bowl. I mean, they're always in the playoffs. But that's a tough thing to do because it's a business, and there are decisions. As I said, I'll guarantee you, Kansas City did not want to let Jeremy Maclin go. But they looked at it and said, "Listen, we're going to have to find some room here." I mean, I don't know.
It's
what
either him or it's five players, right? Like that's what they're deciding about, right?
Yeah, and I was really, really sort of mystified as to why they used their first pick on Mahomes. I mean, clearly they think he's the quarterback of the future, but are you telling me right now, and I think they are, we can't get any better with Alex Smith? We think we've gone the distance with him, and that's what they're telling you here. But, I'm worried, and I am wary because I realize what Andy did with McNabb in '99, and that worked out, but his subsequent moves with quarterbacks and drafts, they didn't work out so well, and they never became the quarterbacks that you thought they would. And so I look at Mahomes and he comes from a program that's historically a big NFL producer of great quarterbacks. In fact, there have been flops everywhere. Why would you spend the 10th pick of the draft on a guy who may sit for a year when you really need some help in other areas? So that's off another subject. But the bottom line here is, as I said, it's a business, and people have to understand that. Sometimes with business decisions, you're going to let guys go that are fan favorites or are productive players, but you have to let them go for one reason or another. And to me, classic case in point with Baltimore was Anquan Bolden. I mean, when they let him go, I thought, God, I don't know about that. And he's had productive years, obviously, in San Francisco and now with Detroit.
He is Clark Judge, TOF, out on Twitter, one of our favorite guests to have on. It's been a little while since Clark and I have caught up, a couple months. You can find him at Talk of Fame, and you can find him here at WNST each and every Sunday talking to a variety of different people. One thing that becomes eminently clear, and Clark, I mean, I'm a baseball guy, and we're in baseball season, and I'm wearing a...
I love baseball. That's my favorite sport.
I'm wearing my Buck Showalter Baltimore orange jersey right now, as well as my Ravens cap out here on our Facebook Live and our YouTube channel. With the Orioles right now, they are about 16 months away from sort of this apocalypse, right? I mean, Showalter, Duquette, Adam Jones, Manny Machado, and Zach Britton are all up 15 and a half, 16 months from now, one way or the other. And when you got guys that have run the organization a certain way for a period of time, and in Baltimore we're so spoiled because Ozzie, Eric, George Kokinis, all the same guys, Pat Moriarty, whether it's Billick before, now Harbaugh going on a decade, that they all feel like we're going to be here next year when we draft again. And I tell you what, the Kansas City scenario, when you're drafting a quarterback that you're not going to play and you're jettisoning a wide receiver who is universally liked in your clubhouse, in your community, who helps your team, and you let them go over a number this late in the game, a week after you attend their wedding, it really speaks to some sort of job security that in some places you have it, and in some places you're not buying green bananas because you don't know whether you're going to be there on Monday morning to eat them when they get ripe. And well, it's the truth. And with the Orioles right now coming up on a trading deadline, I don't think any of these people realize whether they're going to survive long enough for Manny Machado to be around or not around. And certainly if you're an Oriole fan or you're the owner, you're the only thing that survives all these managers and general managers and players and agents, is that it does go on. And there comes a point where you do want to plan for the future. And not a lot of organizations either have that ability because of the kind of management they have or the scenario they were in or how they're playing right now or what their potential is to win win a championship this year, that if that doesn't happen, that they have to think, well, why do I want the rookie project guy that's going to play in 2019? I'm going to be on a beach in Florida by then.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's why I felt that what Chicago did with the second pick was astounding. John Fox needs to win now. You can tell me Mitch Trubisky is going to be the quarterback that's going to win now? He's not ready to play now. So they take a quarterback when they have all sorts of issues on defense. Take a quarterback who's going to sit maybe most of the season, if not all the season. This is the second pick of the draft. How can you win that way? And I don't think you can. But you're right. If I'm doing that, and I'm John Fox, and I'm part of that organization, I say, you got to give me some insurance here. I mean, this is a free pass for this year, right? I've got a free pass this year because I just spent the second pick of the draft on a guy who's not going to play, and he's not ready to play. But it comes down to the organization, i.e. the owner. There's always tremendous pressure on fans, by fans, to win now. And the question is whether the owner responds to it or not. They all want to win, but how do they respond to it? And you're in a division, I'm talking about the AFC North, that's got tremendous stability and tremendous patience. You look at Marvin Lewis in Cincinnati. I mean, next to Belichick, he's the second longest tenured coach. You look at John in Baltimore. Is this his 10th year now? Is this going to be his 10th
9, I believe. Well, hold on. He came in 2008, so this is 7. Yeah, this will be 10. Right?
Yeah. So
am I right or am I wrong?
Then,
I am right. Yes.
You know, I think you're right. And then you got Pittsburgh that's had 3 coaches in the last 40 years or whatever. But there's tremendous stability, and there is great success and there are great rewards to be paid for that. But unfortunately, most owners and almost all fans don't have that patience. They want to win now. And if they don't, get rid of them. Let's bring in somebody new. And that's what you see in Cleveland. And it's never worked out. They just keep turning it over. They turn over GMs, they turn over players, they turn over coaches, even turn over owners. And it hasn't worked out there. And it can't. I mean, it can't unless you have some kind of stability. And as I said, that's what I love about what the Ravens do. It's what I love about what the Steelers do. Like you said, they all know where they stand. You know the kind of player you're drafting because the mantra is the same as it was 3 years ago because the head coach is the same. The scouts are the same. The GM's the same. It's the same as it was 5 years ago because they're all the same. We know what we're looking for. We know the kind of player we're looking for. And unfortunately, I've been covering some teams in the past where that wasn't the case. I covered the Chargers when they had so many losing seasons, Baltimore Colts when they had losing seasons, and I went up to San Francisco. It was completely different. I mean, it was just, they had a gun to everyone's head. If you don't get to the Super Bowl, you better be careful. And so there was this push to go. But there was a great stability in and around that organization. I mean, George stayed there for a long time. Bill was there for a while. But they left generally voluntarily. And I love that. I love the fact that a team knows what it has to do. That stability is no longer there in San Francisco, nor is it in most places. But it is in your division. And that's what I love about that division. To me, it's my favorite because I know what the games are going to be like. They're games that I enjoy. They're not these high-scoring, computer-like affairs that it's 50 to 48. Pittsburgh, Baltimore, there's no better series on the planet than that game. And if it's 14-10, 7-3, I don't care. I know it's going to be football played at its very best and the way it should be played. It's old-school football, and I like that. But it comes down to, Nestor, as I said, it comes down to stability. And a lot of teams, and I'd say most teams, don't have it. They want to change immediately. And sometimes change is not for the best. Pittsburgh's had some losing years, they ride it out. You guys have had some down years, you ride it out. If it becomes intolerable with a locker room situation or there's some kind of personality clash, you have to make changes. But by and large, those teams that are successful, those teams that do override that, they're teams that are stable. And to me, Baltimore's one of them.
He is Clark Judge, TOF, out on Twitter. A lovely Twitter image of his pet, as well as a Central Park snow scene. You can follow him on Sundays here at WNST as well with the Talk of Fame Network. And they talk football and yap over here on Sunday afternoons about all things history and current. It is fascinating, man. It's like my elementary school class. There were 32 of us in the class, and some of us were good at math, some of us weren't. Some of us were good at sports, some of us weren't. Some of us could read better than others. And, I guess for these owners, some of them are sort of perennially lost, these wayward franchises. The one thing they all have in common is not having a quarterback, right? But Buffalo, Jacksonville, Cleveland, the 49ers, the Bears to some degree, certainly were the Chargers. Yeah, where the Chargers
Bears
are
on that one.
now, the Rams, and these boats adrift out there forever. And I don't know that any of these teams that are drafting in the top 8 or 10 that I look at any of them and say they're going to make huge moves this year. I think Tennessee's gotten better. I think Tampa Bay's gotten better. They've gotten better because they've had quarterbacks. Ditto the Oakland Raiders. They've gotten better because they've gotten a quarterback. But now we start to see Denver and Houston and these other teams try to get by on defense and without a quarterback.
Right.
It's very, very hard to like those teams in the offseason when you look up and say, now who's my quarterback again and what has he done at this level?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, with one exception. I mean, you mentioned San Diego. San Diego's got a terrific quarterback. Philip Rivers, I think, is a terrific quarterback.
That might be all they have at this point, right? That
he has nothing around him, and they should be better, except they never are. And I long ago stopped picking them for that division because they always disappoint. They get a zillion injuries, and Rivers playing against teams with a cast of thousands at wide receiver. They're auditioning guys probably as we speak. But I was out there last week. He's still got it. He wants to play 3 more years at least. He's a solid quarterback in a bad organization. Unfortunately, he's in a bad organization. But you're right about the others. With Denver, how do you get excited over that choice? I mean, Simeon or Lynch, I don't know. Neither one of them excites me. Houston, I don't know what Deshaun Watson's going to do down there. I mean, a lot of teams passed on him. He has a successful resume. Certainly, you look at that and you go, boy, this guy's bulletproof. But if he's bulletproof, why wasn't he a top 5 pick? Why wasn't he a top 7 pick, 8 pick? And he wasn't. And there's something wrong with him. And so they.
Well, how are they going to win with him right now, too? That's the question.
Well, they're not going to. They're not going to. You're going to have to sit him. But can you do that when Tom Savage is your quarterback? You say, we're going to win with defense. Maybe you can in that division because that division is not very strong. Except I would look out for him. You mentioned Tennessee. Marcus Mariota is a terrific young quarterback. And I think they're going to be markedly better. That, to me, is the team to beat there. And I look at, like, Indianapolis. They got a terrific quarterback. He's got nothing around him. I mean, and are you excited about the Colts? I'm not. And I used to be, and I'm not anymore because Andrew Luck's come back to earth because his offensive line stinks. They don't have enough playmakers around him. Defense isn't very good. I mean, that's a recipe for disaster, but you're right. Without a good or great quarterback, you're not going to go far. Are there aberrations? Yes. I mean, your listeners will say, what about the Ravens in 2000? Sure. What about Tampa Bay in 2002? I get it. What about Denver in 2015? Yeah. But those were stellar defenses. They were off-the-charts defenses. If you don't have that or running game, you're trying to win just simply with a guy who's an ordinary to bad quarterback, a guy who makes mistakes instead of wins games. You can't rely so much on the others unless you have something that's so off the charts. And the Ravens of 2000 were one of the extraordinary defenses. I thought Denver in 2015 was an extraordinary defense. You can win with those kinds of teams, but it's rare. You better have the quarterback who can win a game when you need that. And that's why, I mean, look at these teams in the past. I mean, there's a reason New England's been to 7 Super Bowls since 2000. They've got the quarterback. Tom Brady, he's won a zillion. He's won 5 of them. He's extraordinary. You look at those teams. Peyton Manning, when you have Peyton Manning, you got a shot. And so he's an extraordinary quarterback. And even when he wasn't, he gave them something other than skill at the end of his career. He gave him leadership. You need to have a guy who's a leader. And you could have a guy with extraordinary qualities, Jay Cutler, who has no leadership qualities. And so you can't win with him. You've got to find that right guy. And that's what it's all about. And, you look at a division like, I'd say, the NFC South. They got some pretty good quarterbacks there. You got Matt Ryan, Cam Newton, Drew Brees, Jameis Winston. Whew, that's a pretty good group of guys. You mentioned Derek Carr in Oakland. Yeah, I think you can win with Derek Carr, but you need guys who are more than simply great passers. You need great leaders, and I think that's a rare combination. When Baltimore looked at Kyle Bowler, they're talking about his arm strength. Well, that's the last thing I would look at. I want a guy who's a leader, a guy who's a winner, and it didn't work out there. But it can with some of these other guys, and as I said, with Deshaun Watson, I look at that and go, whoa, well, he won wherever he was, and he won on big stages, and he played at a big program. Now let's see what happens. I'm really curious to see what happens there because there'll be tremendous pressure on Bill O'Brien to play him early, and that could be bad for him in his career.
Clark, I know you're East Coast now, living up in Connecticut, and you spent your time here in Baltimore covering the Colts and chasing them out of here. But I think of you with the Chargers, and I think of you out on the West Coast, and I know you spent some time in the Bay Area as well.
I was in San Diego last week.
Incredible upheaval, right? And I know, I did see you out on Twitter out there, and I've been to that complex one time in my life, out there at Rancho, whatever the heck it's called. And it's such a beautiful Murphy Canyon, right. I mean, such a beautiful area, and, San Diego's so beautiful. I flew through the airport on my way to Portland to see U2 back in May, and I spent, 30 minutes in the San Diego airport, and I thought, they don't have a football team here anymore. What the hell,
Right.
And I know for all the time you spent out there, anything you want to say about all of this nonsense that's gone on the last 24 months?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to somebody with the organization. They said, I fault three people. And they said, I fault us, I fault the NFL, and I fault the city of San Diego. And he was right. I mean, they should have been able to come to a solution here. It just makes too much sense. And in the end, all of a sudden the Chargers said, well, we have no other option. It's kind of like all the doors are closed, so I guess we're going. And they're going to a place where they've got 30,000 seats, maybe. I mean, it's more like 25,000. They're going to be a tenant for an owner that Dean Spanos, owner of the Chargers, really doesn't like. So you're going to be the undercard there whenever you play. It just didn't work. And L.A. doesn't want them. I mean, when they announced they were going, Bill Flaschke, the L.A. Times, writes an editorial. The second graph, he said, here's the message all of LA would like to send you. We, period, don't, period, want, period, you, period. Basically, I mean, it's like, we don't want you. We don't care about you. Go back to San Diego. Stay there. And this person asked me, they said, do you think there's any chance of the Chargers one day coming back here? And I said, well, that's a ways down the road.
Clark, I mean, you've been at this 30 years, dude. I mean, look, when we lost the Colts here, it wasn't because people here didn't want the Colts. They were fed up with the Colts. In a lot of cases, I mean, all of these cities had a welcoming tarmac with PSLs and stadia and excited business people and broken hearts from here to Cleveland and St. Louis and Houston and all these places where football had left and came back. And L.A. was the one place for 30 years that never gave a rat's ass about one team, let alone two.
That's right.
And
it's because they already had a pro team. They had USC.
This San Diego, the moving of the Chargers is such an egregious, sinful, awful. I mean, why didn't they just move them to like some island out of Catalina or something where nobody would care? It really is a fascinating.
Might get more people there.
It's a fascinating thing, and you and I were both at that press conference where Tagliabue back in 1999 said, hey, this was going to be the last Super Bowl around here unless you guys get your act together. And I would think that San Diego easily could have created a deal where if they built the stadium, they would have had 10 Super Bowls in 50 years or something.
Oh, sure.
They could have done something to make it sort of palatable, but I know everything needs to be voted upon in California, and I'm all for democracy and all of that. But California didn't want to build these stadiums, and that's a different way of thinking than where Baltimore was with a bleeding heart in 1984.
That's right. Here's what happened. It came to a referendum, and it got 41% of the vote, or 43%, whatever. It was underwhelming, and 50% or 51% wasn't going to carry it. You had to have two-thirds of the vote, which everyone knew going in was impossible. Now, could you get 55 or 60 where it looked encouraging? Instead, the pendulum swung the other way. They got anywhere from 41 to 43%, and that sort of convinced Dean Spanos that I'm out of here. The city's response was, and I'm talking about taxpayers, listen, I know what you're saying here. You'll raise the funds by taxing people from out of state, essentially tourists or maybe people from out of the city. So we're going to have hotel taxes for this, taxes for that. We're going to have all these fees that won't tax us, they'll tax them. And people on the outside say, so what was the problem? And the problem was the people of San Diego are saying, wait a minute. I mean, we're raising money from those people for the stadium. Why don't we raise that money from those people for other things like education, roads, security, law enforcement, that sort of thing? Why don't we do that? That's more important to us than giving money to a billionaire who's already got it. So we're basically saying to him, you want to build a stadium? Build it yourself. Go ahead, build it yourself. And obviously in the end, Dean Spanos said, no, I'm going to L.A. And they said, adios. And it's sad. Because
if you would have said 1999, are they going to get a stadium there, or is weed going to be legal first, or is Donald Trump going to be president first? And you know what I mean? And the Chargers are gone, and look at the world we're in today.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's funny because I was out there last week, and it was really weird because it was a last mini camp there, and there was like no buzz whatsoever. And I understand that. I was talking to Nick Canepa, who's a longtime friend of mine and the
good man, Nick Canepa, absolutely, yes,
great guy. And Nick was saying, hey, listen, nothing's changed since 2015. That's when the bloodletting was. This city was upset, angry, teary-eyed tearful, whatever, distraught, and that's gone. That's a long time ago. We're just waiting for him to leave town. Get out of here. So there's nothing. There was no buzz. There was no national media there. There were a few local reporters. There's nothing going on. When this is their next to last practice here. And you want Phillip Rivers? Yeah, because I've known Phillip for years. He comes over. There's nobody with. I mean, just me and Phillip, and I love it that way. That's the way it used to be. Now you go, God, you'd think there'd be somebody out there, but there wasn't. This is 56 years later. 56 years they spent here, and they're leaving with what? Nothing. No, just a shrug of the shoulders by the city saying, see you later, and that was tough.
Clark Judge covered the Chargers for a long time, also covered the Baltimore Colts here many moons ago. He covers us on Sunday, along with Goose Goslin and Ron Borges, and the Talk of Fame Network, heard here each and every Sunday on WNST. Clark, man, love you, appreciate you. We're all sitting around here figuring out this hockey situation in Vegas, and I know your Canadians are going to lose somebody, the Caps and all that stuff, but man, the Caps, you want to kick me in the groin before you go about the Caps or no?
No.
It hurts enough.
It's funny because before the playoffs, I remember saying to my wife, listen, I don't care whether they got the best record in hockey or not. They're not going to win in the playoffs because they don't. They'll find a way to disappoint. They'll find a way to lose in the playoffs. Now, they put up a fight. I thought they put up a hell of a fight. But in the end, they lost to a better team, and that's the way it goes. But I just go looking forward. We're talking about, football, looking forward with the Caps. What happens there? I thought this was their chance. I really thought this was their chance.
Yeah, so did I. So did Mike Tomlin after we went to Game 6 together. That was a little kooky, but we had a good time that night. Beer was drank, sandwiches were eaten, stories were swapped, laughs were made, and in the end...
I tell you what. I tell you what, Nestor, I love what he's doing with you. I mean, he's really done a lot with you, as I think John Harbaugh as well. And I think it's great. I mean, what you've been doing in the past year, 2 years, I think it's fabulous what you're doing, raising money, bringing awareness to the, insidious disease. And I lost a good friend that way. And I know we talked about it in the past, but man, I give you and your wife all sorts of credit. You've done one hell of a job.
Well, we're going to keep it up. We're not done. We ain't even begun to fight, He is Clark Judge, TOF, out on Twitter. You can follow him, and we'll see you here on Sunday as well. Clark, enjoy the summer. We'll come back, talk some baseball later in the summer, pal.
You got it, Nestor, talking Yankees.
At least somebody got a fish taco out of the deal last week in San Diego. You can find me out in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That's all powered up by our friends at Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's almost bikini season. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. And the Peter Principles, Chapter 6 now out about Davey Johnson and Mike Messina. You'll definitely want to go read that at WNST.net. AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, where we never stop talking Baltimore sports.